common with people than you know. We've got this earth in common for a start, and that's why, you see, I've come all this way to see you. We don't just share it with whales, but with every living thing, with people too. I've come to help you to save yourselves before it's too late, because if you save yourselves, then you'll be saving us too. It's like Grandfather said, we can't survive without you, and you can't survive without us. I didn't have a clue what he was on about, but I didn't dare say so. I felt his eyes searching out my thoughts. You don't really know what I'm talking about, do you? I shook my head. Then I think the best thing I can do is tell you about Grandfather, because it all began with Grandfather. When I was little, Grandfather was always going off on his travels. Voyages of discovery, he called them. All over the world he went. We hardly ever saw him. Sometimes he was away for so long we thought he was never going to come back. And he wasn't all that good about keeping in touch either. He was a sort of adventurer, my grandfather, an explorer. He liked to go places where no whale had ever been before. Then one day, it was some time ago now, when I was quite little, he came back from his travels and told us an amazing story. Ever since I first heard that story, I dreamed of going where Grandfather had gone, of seeing what he had seen. Grandfather had gone off to explore an unknown river, to follow it inland as far as it could go. No other whale had ever before dared to go there, as far as anyone knew anyway. All he knew of this river was that a couple of narwhals had been beached there in the mouth of the river a long time ago, and they never made it back out to sea. The warning had gone out all over the oceans, and that's why whales had avoided the river ever since. It took a while for Grandfather to find it, but when he did, he just kept on swimming. On and on he swam right into the middle of the biggest city he'd ever seen. It was teeming with life. Everywhere he looked there was great cranes leaning out over the river and towering wharfs and busy docks. Everywhere there were boats and barges. He saw cars, trains and great red buses. And at night the lights were so bright that the whole sky was bright with them. It was a magical city, a place of bridges and towers and spires. And everywhere there were people, crowds of them, more than he'd ever seen before, more than he'd ever imagined there could be. He wanted to stay longer, to explore further upstream, to discover more. It was a wonderful place. But Grandfather knew it was dangerous too. The further upriver he swam, the shallower the waters around him were becoming. There were boats and barges everywhere, and he knew that if he wasn't very careful, any one of them could run him down and be the death of him. When a propeller took a nick out of his fin, he decided it was time to leave. And besides, he was weak with hunger. He knew he couldn't go any further. So he turned round and tried to swim back the way he'd come, back to sea. But that's when he found the tide was going down fast. He was having to keep to the deep channels, and so were all the boats and barges, of course. There was danger all around him. He was so busy looking out for boats that he didn't notice how shallow the water was getting all around him. Grandfather knew, as all whales do, just how easy it is to get yourself stranded. He always said it was his own fault. He lost concentration. But he got lucky. Some children saw him floundering in the shallows and came running down to the river to help him. They helped him back into the water and then stayed with him until they were sure he was going to be all right. They saved his life, those children, and he never forgot it. When you get there, find a child, he told me, because children are kind. They'll help you, they'll listen, they'll believe you. So you see, it was only because of those children that Grandfather managed to find his way back out to the open sea again and come back to us and tell us his story. That was when I noticed that all the birds had come back again. The egret, too, was on his buoy in the river. They had gathered nearby. There was pigeons, blackbirds perching on the trees behind me, and on the shore not far away from me, a beady-eyed heron stood stock still. And there was a family of ducks bobbing about on the river, a couple of cormorants among them, all looking at the whale, but none of them too close. And like me, they were all listening. Even the trees seemed to be listening. The whale spoke again. Grandfather told me exactly how to get here, how many days south I had to swim. He said I had to look out for the fishing boats and their nets, not to hug the coastline, because that was where there was more boats about. He warned me about the currents and the tides, told me where the deep channels were in the river, and not to show myself till I had to. I mustn't stay too long, he said. I mustn't swim upriver. I mustn't go any further than I had to. You'll want to, he said, just like I did. When you find a child, that'll be far enough. And when you find him, tell him all I've told you. what we whales want all know and people refuse to understand. Tell them it's our last chance and their last chance, but you must make sure it's a child you tell. The old ones are quite greedy. They have hard hearts and closed minds, or they would not have done what they have done. They're too old to listen, too old to change. The young ones will listen and understand. Just like they saved me, they can save the world. If they know, they will want to put it right. I know they will. They just need telling. All you have to do is tell them. That's what Grandfather told me. So that's why I've found you, and that's why I've come. That was when I saw he was drifting closer and closer to the shore again. I was just about to warn him when he must have realised the danger himself, because suddenly his tail began to thrash wildly in the shallows. The birds took off in a great flurry of panic. The whale didn't stop flailing around until he'd found his way back out into the deeper waters, where he dived down and vanished altogether. This time I wasn't really worried. I knew in my heart that he would come back. He had more to tell me. All the same, he was gone a long while before he appeared again, and I was so pleased to see him when at last he did. It was the strangest thing. But when he began speaking to me again this time, I found I wasn't just hearing his words and understanding them. It was as if I could see in my mind everything he was telling me. I was seeing it all happen in front of my eyes. He wasn't just telling me, he was taking me round the world, round his world, and showing me. He showed me the bottom of the sea, where a coral leaf lay dying and littered with rubbish. I saw a whale being winched, bleeding out of the sea, a turtle caught up in a vast fishing net, along with sharks and dolphins. There was an albatross too, hanging there limp and lifeless. I saw the ice cliffs in the Arctic falling away to the sea, and a polar bear roaming the ice, thin and hungry. He showed me skies so full of smoke that day had become night, and below them were forests burning. An orangutan was running